What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to the 12th annual 2021 Smark Out Moment End of the Year Awards, where we're going to be recapping the best and the worst that has happened this year in WWE. I am your host, as always, Tony Mango. Joining me, as always, are Robert DeFelice.
We're at the end of another year, Tony. We made it, and let's talk about the worst of the year.
Just the worst? We're not going to do the best?
The best is the worst.
And Callum Wiggins, Cowboys here.
Yep, Cowboy rides again for the final time in 2021, and yeah, there's a lot of shit to cover, so let's get on with it.
We have so many things to cover. This is our overall longest thing that we do every single year. Although we did do those mock draft things did take a long time. But I mean, you know, that's what happens when you're having fun. And the Smarkies, as we call them, that's the Oscars form of the Academy Awards kind of things. We've done this 12 years, which is insane. And the awards have changed over time as happened, but we've kind of fit into a little bit of a groove here. So you should know how this has been working the past couple of years. We don't have too many changes or anything. Actually, I don't think I changed anything this year. This might be the first year in a long while that I didn't tweak any part of the awards. I guess technically speaking, I tweaked the AEW ones, so that counts. All right. But we did do the AEW ones. Go ahead and check that back out in the last edition that we had done to know what we liked and we didn't like about AEW for this year. We are recording this in advance a little bit. We were trying to do what we had done the last year, which was a lot easier, where we recorded them in separate chunks instead of trying to do like one 5-hour recording or something, especially because it's always around the holiday season. Right now, it's December 22nd. It's the middle of the day. Dynamite hasn't aired yet, that kind of deal. So if something crazy awesome or crazy terrible happens in the meantime from when this airs, that is your excuse for why we didn't include, you know, oh my God, the best heel turn was this, or, you know, the best match was this one that happened on Monday Night Raw, or whatever it might be. Keep that in mind. Also keep in mind, we want to know what you have to say, so drop a comment below. Tell us your thoughts on what the best and the worst are for these categories that we're going to be breaking down here. We're going to start things off with the Technical Skills Awards. We have a couple different categories to go into here. And then there's going to be separate videos for each other one going forward. We got the Writing Awards next, the Programming Awards, On-Air Personality, the Wrestlers. Then we round everything out with the year-end recap, where we talk about the best and the worst segments that we did for Smark Out Moment, give you a little bit of a recap of how that year went, talk about the feedback survey, all that good stuff. So while you're leaving a comment, if you are not already subscribed to the channel, make sure that you are. Go ahead and do that. Click that button, ring that little notification bell as well. Hit the like button if you like this video and you want this to pop up more on people's social media and, you know, to better attribute the algorithm nonsense that they do on YouTube. You can hit the share button if you do know anybody specifically that you want to send this their way. And if you want to help out on the monetary side of things, just for a general speaking thing, not just necessarily for this episode, but there is that little like thanks button thing. But a great way to help fund things going forward with 2022 is the Patreon. Same thing applies to the members only side of the YouTube content. You know, you get the access to the Darkcast and stuff, just the same as the Patreon. You got the Pick Your Poison tier where you can request something that we maybe haven't gotten around to doing that you really want us to do, or just a random topic that we've never even mentioned before, but it's something that you want to hear from us. Or it could be an article. It doesn't have to be a podcast. If you're more on the article side of things, you want me to write something up or, you know, whatever it might be, then keep that in mind. There's also the TeePublic and Redbubble shops. Those sales are going to be going on for however long they're going to be going on for. I don't really know necessarily. They have new deals all the time, but check that out if you want to hit up the merch shops. And yeah, all right. Plugs out of the way. We don't need to do that for the whole rest of this. That saves us a bunch of effort for all the other episodes. And we are going to start things off the way that we normally start things off here because it makes sense. The best and the worst entrance of the year. I have a couple different ideas in mind. For the first time in a long while, I don't have a best entrance that's a very specific one. Usually I have like Undertaker at Crown Jewel or so-and-so at WrestleMania. I don't have that this year. And maybe I'm forgetting something. So the same that we all apply for with all these, we might kind of jog each other's memories and we might go, oh, you know what? Yeah, I completely forgot about that. I'm going to pick that instead, that kind of thing. We're not locked in with our choices until we lock them in, essentially. But I had a couple in mind. I like Damian Priest's before they changed it. I've always been a big fan of Edge's. I like Shotzi Blackheart with the tank. They don't have that anymore. And I liked Karrion Kross's with Scarlett before that changed and all that. So I'm kind of leaning between those. But I didn't pick one yet because I do feel like there's probably something I'm forgetting. What do you guys have for your best entrances?
Most of my ones focus around just specific events. So I had down Rhea Ripley from WrestleMania 37 because it's always good when someone gets a band to play them to the ring. I like Riddles from Crown Jewel because he was riding a camel.
That's right, yeah.
Bad Bunny had a great entrance to WrestleMania 37 as well because he came in like riding on the back of a four-wheeler or something like that. I can't remember what it was exactly, but I know it was. I think he actually had like the coolest entrance out of WrestleMania weekend. But I'm going to go with Becky Lynch at SummerSlam because I think that was one of the loudest pops the entire year. Was just her coming back. The stuff that followed it wasn't great, but the actual pop of her appearing and coming back into the company was like huge.
This year there was no Undertaker, so I didn't have any specific like, oh man, this guy's entrance, because like Hunter didn't wrestle this year. Nobody who usually does the long dramatic entrance did a dramatic entrance this year, so I had two, one being Riddle on the camel, and the other being Bray Wyatt for WrestleMania because I enjoyed the cinematic of like the Fiend is burned and he walks through the portal and he's the Fiend again. But I think I'm going to go with the camel just because it's actually
The camel.
a funnier entrance and it didn't precede the saddest exit in WWE history.
I think I might go with the Bad Bunny one from WrestleMania. Now that you guys jog my memory about that. Speaking of that, it happened on the very first thing. That was the one that they put the most amount of effort and it seems like a pomp and circumstance into. So I kind of like that one. The camel one was funny though. It's funny too that did you guys hear that thing that Randy Orton had wanted to be on the camel and Vince McMahon shot it down because he's just like, your character would not ride a camel.
Yeah.
So he's just like, I want to have some fun. And Vince is just like, no, you don't have fun.
You're the serious part. You're the straight man in this act.
Right. And it makes more sense. Like, I completely buy into Vince's logic there. How about the worst? The worst entrance of the year. I had a couple people down here. Between these four options, I'm not, mostly three of them. One of them I can kind of rule out as a no. The one that I'm pretty sure I'm not going to pick is Dominic Mysterio, just because it seems a little bit awkward every time he comes out. But I have three that I had been debating about. And, I'm going to pick at the end of this which one I'm going to actually pick. I'm leaning more towards one in particular, but practically everybody from Superstar Spectacle was one that I had thought of. Rob and I were just in awe of like how terrible the music choices were for everybody. And they all looked like they just didn't know where they were going. And that was just a very awkward thing. Guru Rajas in particular, we all thought was funny. But I do have two that I am leaning a little bit more towards, and they are from WrestleMania. One of them being Hulk Hogan and Titus O'Neil when they came out and the crowd was just not feeling it. And it was awkward and they did the whole thing. But I think that that's more of just the overall promo and not the entrance. I think I might actually have to go with, it's a little bit weird to constitute it like this as an entrance, but it is an entrance in some way. The WrestleMania 37 rain delay. Because this is the entrance towards like the whole biggest show of the year. We're finally coming back. And it's like, sorry, everybody, you got to wait like another half hour.
Well, WrestleMania 37 is easily on my worst. Because they had the Mandy Rose slips and falls because it's raining.
There's a lot of things on 37 about that, yeah.
But I think I'm going to go with Ripley because poor Ashley Costello was not hearing herself and it kind of messed up the whole entrance and the whole song and I felt really bad. So I think I'm going to go with that one for the worst because it was supposed to be the best.
Look at that. We got one that's the opposite of the best kind of thing.
I went with I've got Mandy Rose definitely down on my list because it's just funny to see someone slip over. It's just like, oh well, that's something that you remember for all the wrong reasons at WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
I legitimately almost went with Roman Reigns.
Really?
Because
just in general?
It's so long.
Because it takes up 15 minutes of SmackDown every single week. Just like to be fair, I don't watch the shows as much as I used to anymore. But like when you do it, it's just like, okay, Roman Reigns coming out, and then like 2 commercial breaks pass, and he says something. It's like, why does his entrance have to be so? It's cool when it's a pay-per-view and coming down, but just for an episode of SmackDown, like just have him in the ring. Or just walk to the ring, please. It's just like you don't need to have all of the pomp and circumstance surrounding it. It's just too much. But the worst is Doudrop.
Doudrop's a good pick.
Because I know she like from the personality that she portrays on what she presents on Twitter and stuff like that. She's a very carefree and happy personality, but like just the awkward dancing towards the ring,
the finger twiddles,
the finger twiddling, it was quite clear that they didn't really have they didn't know what to do with that character after splitting them with Eva Marie, and now she's a heel, and so they got rid of that really quickly. So it's clear they figured out that was a mistake, but they still got the name Doudrop, so they haven't corrected the mistake all the way yet. So
it is weird that she's a heel named Doudrop, isn't it?
With anybody, they want to call anybody Doudrop. That is just weird.
Yeah, that song is kind of catchy, but it's very cheesy and like eye rolling. It's all like "Live your life" and all this.
Well, they've already changed it, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it's still just an awkward entrance. It's just on the opposite side of things now. Doudrop's a good choice. I like that idea. As far as just like regular entrances, it is pretty bad. So that's how we're going to be going through this. Where, if you are brand new and you've never listened to the awards podcast before, that's essentially what we're doing, the best and the worst for each of these categories. So we're going to continue on here with the best and the worst: clothing, ring attire, ring gear, whatever you want to call it, the stuff that they wear. Apologies for the ambulance in the background. It's not Scott Steiner.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, if we started having him in here and he was just giving us a math lesson, then that'd be a different thing. I wrote actually a bunch of things from the best clothing for this year. It might be one of my longest lists that I've ever had for the clothing options. And some of them, of course, just not really all that memorable. You'd have to look them up. Like I had written down Charlotte Flair from Superstar Spectacle. Of course, stop me if any of these are your picks. The New Day's Brody Lee gear at the Royal Rumble was something that I really liked. That was a good little tribute. Johnny Gargano's War Machine outfit at TakeOver Stand and Deliver was awesome. Gargano's final TakeOver outfit, where it's just like a mashup of all of them, that was super cool. Carmella's outfit in general, for obvious reasons. Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania Backlash, she had like the kind of like Alice in Wonderland sort of playing card suit kind of deal. Zelina Vega at Money in the Bank, I had her down as a really good option, but I ended up ultimately choosing Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods on the 531 episode of Raw. They had the Green Ranger and the White Ranger inspired gear. And Tommy's the man. Green and White Ranger are my two favorite Power Rangers. Those looked badass as it was, even if you had no idea what they were. They were just great ring gear designs. And on top of that, it's something that I was a fan of. So love the Green and White Ranger gear.
And a similar fashion, I'm going to go with New Day gear, but I also want to shout out Sasha at WrestleMania. Sasha just this past week with the Spider-Man gear was super cool. Johnny Gargano at the not TakeOver War Games, but just War Games. Those were all really good, but I liked the New Day dressed as the NWO, and specifically Kofi Kingston dressed as Kevin Nash, because Kevin Nash replied to Kofi, "It was wonderful seeing my gear actually in motion." So I'm going with that. I
didn't have actually many down for this. I couldn't really remember off the top of my head a lot of the the gear choices. So I initially had down just Sasha Banks, Bianca Belair, just in general, because they consistently have good attire and stuff. But I think, like Rob reminded me, and I'll go for the sentimentality and go with Johnny Gargano's Nixon match outfit from War Games, because it was a culmination of all of his takeovers put together. So he put a lot of effort into it. So I think that merits an award.
Yeah, very cool way to just do a mashup of things. You know, I love mashup music, for instance, where you end up getting like a couple of good songs that you really like. You put them together, it makes one even better song in a lot of ways. And it kind of was the same as that. Now, the worst ring attire, I've got 3 that I had written down. Natalya at the Royal Rumble. I don't know if anybody wants to like Google this, by the way. Like, you guys pause the video or something, you know, of course. But Natalya at the Royal Rumble, bad gear. Even worse gear, not for the ring, but she wore it. Charlotte Flair on the August 9th episode of Raw. I had written down 4 asterisks of super awful bodysuit, because this is the thing that she had worn where it was like blue and like some other colors, and it looked like a Jackson Pollock painting as a bodysuit. Terrible looking outfit. I don't understand fashion. But then Karrion Kross comes out in that gimp mask and those suspenders. And I'm like, you know what? He wore that more than 1 week. It contributed towards the end of his whole career in WWE. And he even afterward had tweeted out, somebody had said something like, you think that he would give me that mask or something now that he's gone? And he's like, nobody wants that mask, brother. So he obviously, rightfully so, hated it as well. That thing was just terrible. That's my pick.
Yep, I think that's a fair one. I think that's fundamentally going to be my choice as well, because it's just so dumb putting that S&M style gladiator mask on his face and just thinking that's the turnaround. That's the thing that his gimmick needed to start working. I had other choices of like the Burned Fiend. So I think they imagined it looking cooler than it actually did. And Nikki ASH's superhero outfit. Because like I imagine a child designed it, but then I think the child would be more creative than that. And it just doesn't work because the whole gimmick sucks in general. But that's more on the gimmick itself, maybe, than the actual costume. But the costume's a part of it. But Karrion Kross is definitely the worst.
It's almost a good costume.
No, not even that.
Oh, good lord. I want to give a special shout out to Tony D'Angelo. I said in the AEW one that I don't like that Eddie Kingston just looks like a guy, and Tony D just looks like a guy. Look, Tony D is funny, but it's already gone too far. Like, he shouldn't be a big deal. I don't know why they're treating him like a big deal. He's fun. Let him be Santino. Don't put him in the main event of War Games. But obviously it's Karrion Kross. I mean, that whole fucking thing was just a mess. Shame.
So look at that. We got our first trifecta here. And it happens to be one of the worst things. But we know when it stands out as that bad, then no wonder, you know?
Yeah.
So let's move to the best and the worst signature maneuvers. I only had one written down, and it actually didn't pop up all that much this year for multiple different reasons, which is Keith Lee's Big Bang Catastrophe. I really liked that finisher. And of course, they stopped having him do it. He spent a good portion of the year not in action, and then he got released. So I didn't get much of, it's a bad sentence for me to say. I didn't get much of Keith Lee's BBC, but but what I did, I enjoyed. Oh, there you go. You could snip that part of the audio.
Well, I have a few more options. Yeah, I have a few more options. I like Xavier Woods' tightrope elbow drop, just because I just like the little walking around, and then he dives about 3/4 of the way of the ring, and so I thought that was cool. And he got a lot more shine this year as a singles competitor. I like the cave in from Cameron Grimes when he nails it correctly. Ilya Dragunov's Torpedo Moscow. Because I gave the previous one to Darby Allin. It's just like I just like it when guys just launch their body at people.
Yeah.
Cool. The F5 is always a safe pick.
Yeah.
Because I think realistically, it's that and the RKO are the greatest finishing moves of the 21st century, probably. They're at least like high up in the conversation. But I'll go with Montez Ford's Frog Splash, which I've probably given multiple times since he started, because it is the greatest Frog Splash of all time.
It really is. Like, we had done a finisher versus finisher about Frog Splash before Montez Ford was a thing, and he wipes the floor with all the other ones. That guy gets so high up. I don't know how he's able to pull that off.
Look, I like Montez Ford's Frog Splash. I think it's as great as the 5-star Frog Splash without the extra, like, selling the ribs and all that. I like, obviously, Roman added the guillotine. I like it for his character. It's not going to be my move of the year or anything, but I do enjoy seeing that. But I think I'm going to say for move of the year has to be the KOD. And here's why. Bianca can actually do this to anybody, and that is the sign of a good finish. And even when she did it to Dewdrop, it's like, she's strong, but she's so good. She's so strong, and she got a lot of time to shine this year, and I think it's the only year that she'll actually get it. So I'm going to go ahead and say Bianca Belair's KOD this year.
Doing that to Dewdrop the other day was really impressive, yeah.
It was really impressive. Like, I was worried that she might actually buckle, but she kept it up and was able to deliver it, and I was very impressed.
So on the worst side of things, I had originally written down anyone that I've completely forgotten because they're supposed to be memorable. Like, your finisher in particular is supposed to be something that you have synonymous with your character. And there's a good maybe half of the roster that I can't even tell you what their finisher is. Like, what's Kenny Williams' finisher? How does Mark Andrews win a match? What about Aaliyah James or Draco Anthony or any of these people, mostly on the NXT side of things, but even some on the main roster too? I can't tell you what some of their finishers actually are because they never seem to win a match with it. Like, what's Madcap Moss's finisher? I don't have any idea. But then something in particular had happened on October 22nd's episode of 205 Live, where Duke Hudson won a match by just throwing Malik Blade down to the mat on his face. Like, he just basically grabbed him and said, like, go headbutt the mat. There was no force behind it. I don't know if it was supposed to be a different move and it was botched, but the fact that I can't tell you that that's not his finisher means that that's the worst of the year for me.
I, much like Tony, and this year in particular, because I think I've watched the least WWE this year since I was born. That's not even an exaggeration. There's so many people on the roster, I don't know what they do. And it's terrible because, like Tony said, their finish is supposed to be the biggest move that they do, and I couldn't tell you how half of the present-day NXT roster finishes their matches, let alone anybody else. But I'm going to say, because it happened way too many times, and as much as I said I like the addition of the guillotine to his character, Roman Reigns low-blowing people before beating them happened way too much this year, and he's Roman. He should be, like, beating people as bad as he beat Jey Uso last year. He should have done that to at least 5 or 6 more people on the roster this year, and he didn't. So I'm going to say Roman Reigns' low blow to set up the finish of, like, every match he's had this year.
Yeah, it's technically a signature maneuver if he keeps doing it. That's right.
A couple of options. Nikki Ash, crossbody, because you can't have a crossbody as a finisher in a 2021. It's just not going to fly with me. It's way too basic. Similarly, every single 24/7 championship competitor uses the schoolboy as their finisher, or the schoolgirl, depending on your gender applying it, and it's just like that is the deadliest move in all of WWE, it seems, because nobody seems to be able to kick out of that stuff. Jinder Mahal's class because he still can't hit it correctly. He always lets it go before he connects it with it, and it just like that's meant to be your move, and you still can't hit it correctly. Just yeah, that's even worse for me than not even knowing what certain people's finishing moves are. Is you can't if I know what it is and I know you can't perform it correctly, that's bad. But I'm actually gonna go with an odd one. I'm gonna go with Shayna Baszler's Kirifuda clutch. Because they've absolutely neutered that move this year. Because every single person I could probably name like half a dozen times this year when Shayna Baszler lost a match because she applied that hold, someone either climbed up the ropes or grabbed a body part and rolled her up, and the reason why she lost is because she refused to let go of the hold. So it's basically it's irrelevant now at that point. It's almost she barely wins with it now. I mean, she barely wins matches in general this year anyway, and it's so easily to reverse now. Everyone seemingly can reverse it. So what's even the point of having it?
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I see the point in that. Just, obviously there's different ways to interpret worst and best for that matter. And that's a good way to do it. If you do the finisher wrong and that ruins the finisher, that's one way. If your finisher has been, like you said, like totally neutered this year, because there was a portion of the year where a couple of weeks where Shayna Baszler was getting back on track, and yep, now everybody just does the reversal stuff. So, but those are the worst. We well picked, right? What was your pick again, Rob? The low blow. That's what it was. Yeah. I unfortunately do not have an option for the first of our next thing, which is spot and botch, the best or the coolest spot, and the worst and the biggest botch. Normally I have a couple written down, and I only wrote one down for the entire year, which means either I missed something that was really cool, or nothing really happened, or I just forgot to write something down, because the only thing I had written down was Braun Strowman throws Shane McMahon off the steel cage at WrestleMania.
I think this is the year that you probably stopped taking as many notes.
I mean, I was crazy busy this year,
I think that's what happened.
It might just be that I forgot about some here and there, but that's the only note that I had written down. And then I had a note that said, "Aren't you forgetting something?" And I'm like, I don't know what that means. So hopefully somebody jogs my memory. I'm sure that's not the best spot, but it's the only thing I had down.
It's on my list for the best.
I mean, yeah, if you're going to put Shane McMahon out in a match, you should have him fly off of something while he still can. My best is, I'm going to go with Bianca again, the one-handed press to Sasha at Crown Jewel, because I think that was really cool. And to see that crowd in particular pop for that was super fun.
There's a few on my list. I had Kevin Owens ascent off the forklift at the Royal Rumble to Roman. Bobby Lashley attacking Sunberg. Goldberg's son. That's what I call it.
Sunberg.
Goldberg's son.
I like that.
But that's but yeah, I thought that was a cool moment. I have AJ Styles hit a fucking burning hammer in a match with Riddle on Raw, and the burning hammer is one of like it's one of the top tier finishing moves especially like in strong style wrestling. So to see it just happen on an episode of Raw, and it not even to be the finish, to be a setup for the Styles Clash, was just like, oh my god, what's going on? But I'm gonna go with something that actually like got me out of my seat when I saw it, which is Sheamus bro kicking a flipping Riddle at WrestleMania 37 in their United States title match. Riddle goes for essentially a lion salt, and Sheamus bro kicks him right in the face upon landing it, and that was a great match, and it's a testament to the fact that Sheamus had one of arguably his best ever in-ring year this year, and yeah, and Riddle was great as well all throughout the year, and I thought that was just an excellent moment and an excellent finish to that match.
I'm going to have to look that back up again because I don't remember that, but that does sound pretty cool.
It was cool. So I picked it.
Yeah, I mean, Sheamus definitely had a banger year. There was the Cesaro swinging Rollins stuff.
22 times, if I remember correctly.
And you might have forgotten it because they've neutered Cesaro again, but that was really cool. The Edge, when Edge and Seth Rollins were fighting in the Hell in a Cell, and Rollins went flying towards nearly the top of the cage and came down through 2 tables. I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yeah, so I don't know which one I'm gonna have on my actual page, but
there was Kevin Owens got powerbombed through a ladder during that Money in the Bank ladder match. I can't remember who it was that actually powerbombed him. Maybe McIntyre or something like that, but he just it's one of the ones where they got the ladder bridge set up on the outside and he just goes straight through it.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like there wasn't really a standout a lot of years. There's that one move, yeah, of course everybody's gonna pick that one kind of deal. Not necessarily the case, but I do admit I probably dropped the ball on my notes on those things. So for right now I've got the Braun Strowman thing in there, but we'll see.
You know what though? Just real quick, because as I said, Edge and Rollins, one for best entrance that we didn't discuss was Edge doing the Brood entrance at SummerSlam.
Oh yeah,
because that completely skipped my mind until I said Edge and Rollins at Crown Jewel. That was a cool entrance.
I'm going to write that down. I might end up double checking that. I might end up picking that instead. Well, I don't know. You can always switch things around. Biggest botch, the worst screw up of the year, any of those kind of things. I have a couple things written down. I wrote down Peacock. Just Peacock in general. This whole thing from not having the ability to pause and rewind and rejoin the live feed. That was just ridiculous. It shouldn't have taken that. They should not have started off Peacock saying we don't have everything on there and we've got fundamental things that every platform should have that are missing. But if you give us 6 months, we'll figure it out. And they really took them until after SummerSlam to get that going. That's ridiculous. That should not be happening. But I figured that doesn't really count. That's more so just a WWE and Peacock, fundamental flaw. I do have 3 that really stood out to me, though, as big botches for this year. This one less so, because it was just one of those things that at the time, it was really funny. I don't think anybody really remembers it too much, though. Nikki ASH beats Tamina accidentally, and they play Tamina's music, and they announce Tamina as the winner. And then they're like, actually, it's Nikki ASH who won. It's yeah, she did get the pinfall. So that was just all. Tamina was clearly supposed to win that and didn't kick out. And then that causes this issue where everybody just gets trigger happy. But it's Mike Rome even announces Tamina wins. And it's are you not even watching this?
That's the scary part. That it's are you not watching? Are you that just
brain dead?
On autopilot?
Right, yeah. I got the one that I'm sure a lot of people would have on here that we mentioned earlier. Mandy Rose slips during her entrance at WrestleMania. That's one that, they made multiple references to it. But my main pick for the biggest botch of the year is the handcuff situation at Royal Rumble.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a last man standing match.
That's embarrassing.
And obviously in a last man standing match, you have to get to your feet before the count of 10. Roman Reigns is handcuffed. They're 7, 8, 9. Something's wrong with the camera. I don't know. That was terrible. That absolutely ruined that match. And it was the only thing that was worth talking about for the match afterward. And the match, from what I can remember, wasn't a bad match up until that point. But then that completely stole the show as far as just all right, that's all we're going to talk about now. Because it's just, how bad was that?
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I had forgotten, there were many people saying, oh, Kevin Owens is basically world champion. He should be champion now. That's really bad. What do you have, Callum?
A few choices alongside that one. I have Xylee knocks out Mercedes Martinez.
Ooh, yeah. That's
and
right.
then proceeds to, a couple of weeks later, get knocked out in a match against Raquel Gonzalez.
That was just the universe balancing itself out.
Yeah. Raquel's never gotten any feedback from that.
No, she was the instrument to do it.
Yeah, it only really comes full circle with Mercedes Martinez then knocked out Raquel Gonzalez. But I guess that's kind of... Charlotte Flair doesn't kick Rhea Ripley in their match. It's like when she was just like kicking air for a little while.
Yeah, I remember that one.
A lot of these involving women, I don't think it's like meant to be aiming towards that, but just trying to ones that came in my mind.
Nature of the beast.
The Alexa Bliss Seltzer capsule following the match with Charlotte Flair, where she's meant to be foaming at the mouth because they destroyed Lily.
Right, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and it's just like it looked unbelievably fake.
Yeah,
and
she's just got a chiclet in her mouth.
Yeah, but it's not supposed to look like that. The JC James suicide dive in a triple threat match against Io Shirai and can't remember who the other woman was.
Zoe Stark, probably.
No, it wouldn't been. It would have been Io Shirai. It would have been whoever else was in that triple threat tag team match for the
Persia
tag. Yeah, Persia. Yeah, and because she had to be taken out of the match because she just landed so badly. And it's just another example of like no one should do suicide dives because Darby Allin exists.
Correct.
But the worst is the Roman Reigns handcuffs. I'm not going to take that away because it was just so unbelievably terrible. Just fucking gimmick the handcuffs. No one cares. We don't need
it's
real
fake.
handcuffs. Yeah.
You know what? Since you both went with the handcuffs, I'm going to say Extreme Rules with Alexa. That was so embarrassing because they kept the camera on her mouth that she's clearly not foaming and it's just drool kind of white and they kept the camera on her and then she fucking disappeared. Where is she? Like, okay, obviously the person has said like, I'm resting, I'm healing, but where are you? Like, you don't explain anything on that whole thing. She just sort of vanished. Is she coming back in the Rumble as goddess, and are they just gonna scrap the whole Fiend-esque thing? Like, that was bad.
You know what else was another one that I forgot to mention? Eva Marie tripping.
Oh, see, I can't class that as a botch because I think she intentionally tried to do that.
Well, the whole point's that she trips, but the way that she did it was so bad that it looks even worse.
But that's I don't think that's a botch. That's just her being a bad actress.
Yeah, I think that's just like she botched doing that well. You know.
I guess so. I mean, that was unbelievably terrible.
Yeah.
I'm basically the entire Eva Marie run we could classify as a botch, but then
I almost said the call up of Hit Row, but that felt mean.
NXT 2.0.
Yeah, that's also a good one.
Let's see where we're on now. Switch over to the recognition side of things. The most underrated superstar of the year and the most overrated superstar of the year. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 people listed under my most underrated. Because there's people that I never hear anybody really talk about, or I think that they just don't talk about them enough. Some of them are already gone from the company, the way that works. So I'm going to just run them down very, very, very quickly. Again, stop me if that's your pick. But the people that I didn't choose, Tyler Breeze, Asuka. I can't believe that Asuka still is not, like, she tends to be on this list a lot. Sam Gradwell, actually. Underrated even for me. I didn't think that this guy was anything. And this year, he's been doing pretty well. Noam Dar, Santos Escobar, LA Knight, Johnny Gargano, because I just think that people should talk more about him, even though people do. I just think that he's that great. Toni Storm, she never seems to really be going anywhere, and she should. She should be a top prospect. Shayna Baszler, booked terribly this year for the most part. She should be a champion. Mansoor, I hate that they only ever do anything with him just prior to a Saudi Arabia show. I think Rick Boogs deserves a little bit more credit. Baron Corbin, I always think deserves more credit. Almost went with him. Drew Gulak, they never do anything with him. He's great. Austin Theory, I had originally down, but he is, working his way in their mix. I don't see the point in having him down anymore. Drake Maverick, I think deserves more credit. I always think that The Miz deserves more credit, but I went with T-Bar. Because T-Bar sucks, but Dominik Dijakovic is so good. And all they have to do is take the T-Bar name off, wipe off the face paint, have him as Dijakovic, and just utilize him. And he's going to get over more. And they don't want to do it. So nobody talks about T-Bar because T-Bar's a stupid name and Retribution blows. So he doesn't get any credit at all. Whereas when he was in NXT, people were like, okay, this guy could be one of those main prospects for the future.
And that's it. Like, it feels so weird to say I have to pick somebody that's still there, because a lot of the people that they dropped were extremely underutilized and underrated. The main one that comes to my mind is Keith fucking Lee, who should have been U.S. champion this year, let alone, maybe even a world champion this year.
The reason I didn't go with Keith Lee is because I think that everybody except for WWE realizes that,
Yeah, but I mean, if WWE is like, we need him to be Bearcat, then I think that constitutes him as being underrated, at least for me. Because there's nobody really there right now that I feel like, oh man, they're just simply not doing enough with Dolph Ziggler. There's nobody there that I think is getting less than what they deserve. Because, Kevin Owens isn't underrated. He's just not in the main event scene the way I would want him to be this year. So I'm going to go Keith Lee, because they should have never fucking fired him.
Yeah, I've got a few on my list, as you would expect. There's a lot of people that are underutilized in the WWE landscape. Kevin Owens is on there, T-Bar's on there. Fabian Aichner and Marcel Bartel. Even though they're the NXT Tag Champions, it's like they should be featured on the main roster, because the main roster desperately needs good tag teams. Same with the Grizzled Young Veterans. Fucking hell, as NXT 2.0 just completely ruined them. Just same with Kushida. Why is Kushida in a joke tag team now? Timothy Thatcher never really gets the recognition that he deserves. My runner-up is Mustafa Ali.
Yeah.
Because Ali is great. And he's totally authentic as a babyface. He just comes across as the nicest guy. And all they can do is come up with heel gimmicks for him. Like Retribution. And then starting off a gimmick where he hates Americans. Going along the lines of the fact that he's Muslim, and they do that. And then they completely drop it and tell him that they've got nothing for him. So hopefully they do something with him, or he finds somewhere that will do something with him in the new year. But it has to be Chad Gable, and I think I've given Chad Gable to this multiple times before, because Chad's awesome. Chad's one of the best wrestlers on the entire roster, and he has great matches with basically anybody that he's put in with. But the last time that he won a singles match was?
But he was Shorty G, I'm sure.
I have no idea.
His last win in a singles match was the 15th of June, 2020.
With his Shorty G?
Yeah, as Shorty G defeating Mojo Rawley.
See, I knew it.
SmackDown.
I knew it.
Again, a guy who I think was released in that same year as well. So he was gone pretty much after that as well. And yeah, it's just been a year and a half. He hasn't won a singles match on TV. And all he does is, and he still has good matches to people and puts them over, but it just
had a banger with Randy.
I know, but just a case of he shouldn't just be enhancement talent.
Right.
And he's there to prop up Otis. Otis is the star out of their team. That's just, it's so disappointing.
The thing is, Otis was a star in early 2020.
Otis was a star. Then they decided they don't want to have him be a star anymore. Then they decided they wanted to try to build him back up, and it was but it was working. What?
Yeah, ironically, they didn't want him to be a star. They chose for him to be a bully.
That's true. So, on the overrated side of things, I had a couple different ones down. I think that people go a little too nuts over Ember Moon. I know that's going to make you sad, Rob.
Yeah. Listen, she basically has earned it at this point.
I like Tyler Bate, but I don't think the Tyler Bate is this, oh my God, he should be prioritized all the time. Why is he not winning titles constantly type of person that some people treat him to be? Like, I think that he kind of has overachieved already in some ways, but he's not my pick. I do think Raquel is a little bit overrated right now. Not most overrated, but she was a contender. For a short time frame, Top Dollar was my overrated because they seemed like they were pushing him, and I'm like, I don't see it. And then he got fired, so I'm like, all right, well, that doesn't work anymore. I got to go Liv Morgan.
It's a choice, yeah.
Really, what has Liv Morgan done that makes her seem like she's on par with Bianca, Rhea, the Four Horsewomen, and people act like she should have had the title twice by now? Come on.
There's so many stands.
She really does. And it's like, I like Liv Morgan. I think that she seems like a really sweet girl. I think that it's a shame that they didn't do more with her a couple different times, but I don't think that she's ever been at a point that I wanted her to be the champion.
I think there's something you can do with her. They haven't done it yet.
She would have been a really big star in the Divas era.
Yeah. There's a few you can say that about.
Yeah.
So I'll go, and I'll say somebody who, like, okay, we know how good this person can be, but I think WWE is going to tout her as the future as they continue to shovel mounds and mounds of dirt on her, and that's Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley feels to me like she had the moment. She immediately became a robot. Like, she couldn't cut promos anymore. As soon as she entered Raw, it was weird. And she just stopped being good to me and started being, well, Rhea Ripley's here. She's the nightmare. I thought I'm going Rhea Ripley.
Yeah, again, got a few choices. I'm basically directing this one pretty much at Tony, but Austin Theory.
Yeah.
Because to me, him and Grayson Waller are just like generic guy. But people were telling him, it's like, oh, these are the future of the company. Well, if the future of the company is we're basically doing things in black and white because there's no point even having any color on this anymore or any character whatsoever, then sure, we can push them. I mean, his best work was as an idiot as part of The Way.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and now he's on TV with his gimmick is essentially Tyler Breeze without the selfie stick, and like obviously just being like Vince McMahon's sugar baby, pretty much. I wonder if I also feel similarly about Indy Hartwell to a degree as well. I think people think that she's better than she is because they like the Index stuff, whereas she's actually not that good in the ring. I would say, but I kind of looked at the recognition when I looked at people that the company kind of position higher than I feel they should, more than I looked at like, oh, the Liv Morgan thing. So Liv Morgan makes sense for the fan perspective, but I was looking at people like Goldberg, let's say, because Goldberg is still pushed as the main event guy, or Von Wagner, because he's big, and that's the only characteristic that he has, and yet they're gonna consistently push him. But in that vein, I'm gonna kind of go with Mandy Rose then, because Mandy is now NXT champion. I think already she's the worst NXT Women's Champion they've ever had. She's not that good in the ring. I think she's regressed since a couple of years ago when she was probably looked like she was about to step it up and move on. She had the stuff with Otis and the stuff with Sonya, and that was fine, but I always felt that Sonya was the better part of the act, and Otis was kind of propping her up a bit as well, because Otis had a lot of charisma and personality, and she was just the hot blonde. and now she's the hot dark head girl, and that's basically her character. Is that you almost like they're using her as a heat magnet because she's only there because she's hot, and that's going to annoy fans because fans watch NXT or the old NXT for the wrestling, and it just, yeah, I don't like that aspect of it. I don't think that she's holding the title with much credibility, and I hope she drops it soon to anyone really at this point. I'm trying to think of like it will likely be Cora Jade, but I imagine it could be someone like, it could be Zoe Stark, or
I think it's Stark.
EO again, yeah, or Raquel if they don't decide to put her back up. But I'm waiting for her to drop it, someone to win it, and then for Tiffany Stratton to hold it for like 10 years.
Well, I haven't seen her. She never wrestled, right? She hasn't wrestled yet.
She's on 205 Live.
Yeah, she wrestled a couple of times on 205 Live. Yeah,
no wonder.
I'm basically imagining, and I'm not actually. I don't want to spoil it too much for the breakout stars that we do at the start of the year. But I'm imagining big things for Tiffany Stratton in the coming year.
Alrighty, let's move over to improvement and a superstar. This means the biggest upgrade and the biggest downgrade based off of what they were at last year. There's a couple different ones I had written down for biggest upgrade. I had written down Bianca Belair, and then I wrote down, does that really count? Because she was just great, and then she worked her way towards that spot, so I don't think that really counts.
But she wasn't doing anything in 2020.
No, but I mean, like, we knew that she could do it, and then it was like, all right, then they just allowed her to do it, you know? Indy Hartwell, I thought, had a big upgrade this year. Cameron Grimes, Kyle O'Reilly until they decided that they didn't care anymore. Nikki ASH won Money in the Bank and the Women's Championship, but then it turned out to end up being kind of worthless, so that pick went out the window. Xia Li had an upgrade and everything, but I ended up going with Tamina. Tamina won a title this year.
I think that's fair.
And she felt like a legit member of the roster again. That's crazy.
Didn't last, did it?
No, but I mean, this was the longest stretch that they actually had pushed her.
You know, Tamina also got cheered at WrestleMania, which I think says a lot. So she is a good choice.
I think if you asked her what her favorite time frame of her career was, she's probably going to say this year.
Maybe in the same vein, this could be the only year that you can give it to Dana Brooke.
It's true. She did win a title for the first time ever, too.
She is a current champion, and it seems like she's been on Raw every week, and they might actually do something with her. I think the biggest upgrade, though, it might be looking at NXT 2.0 for one of the only people you can, and look at somebody like a Cora Jade. She
can't upgrade. She wasn't in the company last year.
Oh, are we only going from WWE to WWE? Okay, fair enough.
Well, that's kind of what improvement says.
Well, I was gonna say because she was on the Indies last year, and she is now headlining takeover events. But in that case, I'll say Sonya went from having a really bad year to being featured on every single show. So I'm gonna say Sonya Deville.
I had a few choices. I mentioned that I don't think that she's that great in the ring, but I think Indy Hartwell, in terms of just character work, developed a lot with the Index stuff. I think Dexter Lumis became a lot more tolerable as part of this storyline as well. Riddle, I think, is obviously now elevated. He's now like a feature star on Raw from being in NXT the previous year. Sheamus has had a banner year in the ring. Big E's WWE champion now. Like Big E won both the Intercontinental. We held the Intercontinental title for the first half of the year, won Money in the Bank, and won the WWE Championship all in this year.
True.
So from a kayfabe perspective, it was big. But that leads me to the choice, which is Bobby Lashley.
Yeah,
Bobby Lashley started 2020 in the whole Lana and Rusev love triangle thing. Like in 2020, he started all that stuff. The Hurt Business started in 2020, so obviously he elevated himself through that as well. But then he spent the majority of this year as WWE champion. And he felt like the main event star they always wanted him to be. Like the work that he did with MVP was great. They did a nice little character arc in the middle of it where he started to lose his way a little bit because he just got infatuated with the glamour and the girls and all that stuff. And then they had him go serious again and destroy people like Kofi and Xavier and Goldberg as well before dropping the title to Big E. So, yeah, I think the fact that he's now an established main event star and could very well start 2022 as WWE champion as well.
That's my pick.
Yeah, I think Bobby's the standout pick.
So on the downgrade, you never want to see yourself on this part.
No.
Can I go first?
Go for it.
Because there's only one person for this list. Braun Strowman beat Goldberg last year at WrestleMania. You can say whatever the fuck you want about that WrestleMania. It was WrestleMania. If it counts for McIntyre, it counts for Strowman.
He's not on my pick, but that's a good pick.
Braun Strowman was fired this year. It's Braun Strowman for me.
I think in a similar vein, you could say the same thing about Bray Wyatt.
Yeah,
Bray Wyatt
true.
was Universal Champion last year, and he only wrestled one match in 2021.
That's pathetic.
And it was an awful match.
Yeah, and then got fired. Similarly, you could say the same about Keith Lee and Karrion Kross. Like, both guys were NXT champion in 2020. I mean, Karrion Kross was NXT champion in 2021, and then it all just goes downhill so quickly.
Karrion Kross is my pick.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, you can go ahead then.
Well, for the reasons that you're saying, I mean, he was the unstoppable NXT champion beast in 2020. By 2021, he's back to being champion, and then they just cut his legs out from underneath him. He ends up going from a guy who's got one of the coolest entrances, he's got a manager that people are paying attention to, and he seems like he's the next Brock Lesnar in a lot of ways to a lot of people. And he's undefeated. You have him lose on Monday Night Raw to a guy who's no longer in the company anymore. And you put him with these terrible ring gear. You don't bring Scarlett on there, and then you fire them. The only other person I had down on here, other than I had Bray Wyatt down too, but I had Velveteen Dream down.
Oh
dear.
But yeah, I would have just skipped right over that.
But I figured Karrion Kross is like, they actively made these decisions, you know?
I mean, we knew where their Team Dream was going at the end of last year, really.
Yeah. So it's Kross for me, but yeah, Kross doesn't get your pick.
He might do. I mean, I'm still tossing up a few ones in my mind. Like, I think Keith Lee is comparable, as I mentioned. Dominic Mysterio, because I think everyone was like singing his praises when you came out the match with Seth Rollins last year, and said, "Wow, that's a great debut. We'll see where he goes from there." And now he looks so out of his depth in the position that he's in. I mentioned her before. Shayna Baszler's a choice as well because she's lost all her credibility that she once had.
Another woman on the roster for real.
Toni Storm, I think, is an option as well. She just comes across so generic now. Since being called up to the main roster.
Rhea Ripley's an option.
Yeah, Rhea Ripley's definitely an option. But then again, she did win the Raw Women's title this year. So from a kayfabe perspective, I don't think you could really give it to her. The other one I had on my list. She started the year as Raw Women's champion. I guess by the end of it, she's declined. But I wouldn't necessarily go Asuka. She's now in the same position she's always was, which is if she's not the champion, they don't care about her. That's basically. And she's not on TV. The other choice that I had on my list was Tian Shaw.
Oh.
Yeah, technically they were part of last year, weren't they?
Yeah, they started off last year and then just went absolutely nowhere. They pushed Xia Li for a little while, but never really pushed too far with the actual gimmick. And now the head of that family is sitting in the audience sleeping during shows. Which I'm sure many people that watch NXT 2.0 are doing as well, but at least that's character work. I think I'm going to go Keith Lee just to move it around a little bit because I think Karrion Kross and Keith Lee were basically 1A and 1B. So if you're going with Karrion, I might as well go with Keith Lee. Double champion last year and just spent all of 2021 just slowly withering away what like spending with COVID at the start of it and then withering away what was left of his character.
In 2020, was that the year with the Royal Rumble where he's standing opposite Brock and everybody thinks that, like, oh man, he could be the one that fights Brock?
Fuck everybody. Brock said, I want to fight this motherfucker. Like, Brock was super into it. I can't believe they dropped the ball with Keith Lee.
Absolutely ridiculous. The Keith Lee thing baffles me. Best and worst ring work of the year. The technical skills as far as just like the wrestling itself. Thankfully, they do still have some of these people, but some of them are gone already that I had on my list, including the one that I ended up picking. But, I always enjoy the Usos. I always enjoy the Street Profits in the ring. The New Days, you can't go wrong with the New Day match. Cesaro, of course, that kind of deal. For the options, and the one that I ended up going with, no longer in the company anymore, Cole, Bryan, and O'Reilly. But I went with Johnny Gargano. I've talked about it ad nauseum. You don't need to hear me gush about Gargano anymore.
So I'll dive into best ring work by saying that, there's a lot of great choices. One of the things with WWE is that their awful storytelling is often saved by the fact that these guys just have great matches with each other over and over again. Like, the wrestling quality doesn't dip with a lot of these people. As I've said multiple times already, Sheamus had a banner year in the ring. But look at someone like Kevin Owens, Mustafa Ali, Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair had great years in the ring. Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly, because they mainly fought each other, and so it was always going to be good. Riddle, I thought, was great throughout the year. AJ Styles had great matches because he had to carry a guy throughout the entire year as well. Seth had a fantastic year in the ring, and Seth's always great. I obviously got to mention Ilya Dragunov and Walter as well, because those two are just unbelievably awesome in the ring, and we'll definitely be mentioning them very, very shortly as well. But I think overall, I'm actually going to go with Riddle. I think Riddle was consistently appearing on every episode of Raw. He was always trying to do the best work possible. And I think that he had great matches with AJ, a great match with Randy Orton, which led to their tag team. He's had great matches with Sheamus and Lashley, and even though he's losing a lot of the matches, he's still putting a lot of them, like making sure that he has the best quality matches he possibly can put out there. So Riddle.
Rob, what's your pick?
So I'm gonna say, because I think in terms of consistency, she had the best matches of the year. I'm gonna say it's Bianca. Granted, we'll know next year whether she was just completely carried by the likes of Sasha and Becky and Bayley, but Bianca in WWE had the best overall matches and the most that were like, okay, this was a good match, this was fun. And as much as I wish I could give this award to Daniel Bryan, he wasn't around long enough. Otherwise, I'd absolutely say it was Daniel Bryan.
Worst. Couple different options. Wouldn't be weird if I didn't mention Katrina Cortez, but she does not. She does not get my. She doesn't get my my pick for this year. No, I'm leaning more towards my three other options. Shanky is one. Guy's not been good.
Shanky Mania tonight.
And then I'm debating between these two more even than Shanky, because I don't know which is worse: bad, and you never get good, and you don't really have an option to get good, or you've had more than enough time to get good and you're still not. Because it's either B-Fab or Nia Jax. B-Fab wrestled twice, and both matches were shit. Nia Jax has been in this company for years, and she still has those matches.
Had been.
Yeah.
No, well, Nia's a very easy pick, because she had that debacle with Charlotte Flair this year as well. Charlotte is actually not worse, but Charlotte had a very middling year in the ring by her own high standards.
Charlotte had a middling year, period.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got Dominic Mysterio, I think, has been bland and has been more botchy this year. Jackson Riker, because no one likes Gunner. Commander Aziz and Omos, because you know what you're getting with them, and it's not going to be good. Both Veer and Shanky. I have to remember that Lana was still wrestling at the start of the year as well. And there is Alexa Bliss as well, because just not really by her standards, because she can work a good match, but the whole character work really ruined a lot of her matches for me. But I think the obvious choice is Eva Marie.
Oh God, yeah. Eva Marie, totally forgot about adding her on this list. She needs to be, yeah.
Yeah, Eva Marie, I think, she can't sell. Why was she brought back in the first place? It's just...
Why was she brought back and then let go, too? She's not great.
Yeah, she's the complete opposite of great, I would say. So, yeah, worst in ring, Eva Marie.
Yeah, that's a really, really good choice. I was thinking more along the lines of, and she's had like one match, and I don't want to be mean, but she just
Serena Sandhu?
No, I just had it because I was just looking at the highlights because of how bad it was. NXT 2.0, Lash Legend. I didn't want to say Lash LaRue, and I almost did. Lash Legend is... Keep an eye on her, because she might be the worst next year. But I will agree with Callum and give it to Eva Marie. But I just want to point out that, like, that match she had with Saray this past Friday was abysmal. And it's scary to me that they're putting this stuff out there.
Most of the people that they've been bringing into NXT 2.0 with the women's division have not been good. Valentina, Erica Yan, Elisa Leon. I'm not impressed with any of them. And
I want to put this out there because there's a big thing on the internet of like, well, the NXT's developmental, blah, blah, blah. But like, you can't go from being the work rate brand to putting on matches like that and being like, oh, okay, this is why everything sucks. It was really bad. And like, even something as simple as an elbow drop seemed like, I've never done this before. Here I am on TV. That's why you have a performance center. That's also why you have house shows. Do house shows again. Don't put these people on TV. It's not fair to them.
Or maybe don't get rid of a whole bunch of people and feel the need that you need to bring them onto TV before they're ready, you know?
Right. It's like, you can't make everybody a wrestler. And I think that that's something we're going to see in the coming months. And I'm not looking forward to that.
I think that that's going to be a running theme of 2022 is let's make them a wrestler because they don't care about the actual wrestling. And I don't think it's going to work out. We'll see if these next in line people end up being on the worst ring work. But on the mic work side, thankfully they do still have some good characters. We got plenty of people that we could choose from you know, the Roman Reigns types to the New Day, which is my pick. Because collectively, the three members of the New Day, anytime they get a microphone, I'm listening. And I'm pretty much going to enjoy it.
I'm going to make it real quick and say, I know Callum's going to hate me, but I enjoy Roman on the mic. I think he's been the only character in WWE this year that's been worth a damn listening to when they have a mic. So I'm saying Roman Reigns.
Roman's definitely out there, I think, as a potential option. You can look at people like Paul Heyman, obviously. He's always high up on the list. Look at Edge. Edge had to cut some good promos. I think he got a bit too melodramatic in some of them, so I'm not going to end up picking him. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are always great. I think Carmella's exuded a lot of character and personality in the promo work that she's been given. Becky Lynch has been great since he came back. But while he was still there, I'm going to go with Adam Cole.
I appreciate that.
Because specifically, that promo that he cut on Karrion Kross in the build-up to their that fatal 5-way match, just like, it was the most complete burial of a wrestler that I think I've ever well, maybe not I've ever seen, but it's definitely one of the highest ones that I've ever watched. Just him basically saying that he's a flash in the pan and like he can't lace his boots and all of that stuff, just tearing this much bigger guy apart by saying that you just can't wrestle as well as I can and everyone knows it. And yeah, he had some really good promo exchanges with Kyle O'Reilly, and yeah, he's always been so natural on the mic that I think it's the perfect choice. He was so great, they almost made him a manager.
Very true.
Some other shout outs that I had almost given this to Cameron Grimes, Sami Zayn, and my runner up. R-Truth was one. Edge I also had on my list, but my runner up was Riddle.
I like Riddle as well. Riddle's on my list.
But he's going to pop up in other things for me. On the worst, go ahead.
I'll say he definitely will for me as well.
Yeah, Riddle's had a lot of good things this year. He's going to be on multiple things for best for me. Worst, though, there's another whole list of people that just really are not good on the mic. I still do not like Kaylee Ray on the mic. Ricochet never really cuts a good promo. Humberto Carrillo, but they never really give on the mic anyway. Nikki ASH, this character is garbage. I think Liv Morgan's not all that good on the mic. I think Tamina, of course, has never been good on the mic. Ember Moon, never. I never like her promos. Sorry, it's just she never sells me on it. It's always like, now I know what I'm gonna do. What are you gonna do? You know, my God, the sirens today. I'm sorry, I'm trying to mute this as much as possible. They're just deciding that they want to honk constantly and blare it. Hopefully somebody is okay. I really, more than anything though, I was stuck between these two options. A-Kid and the one that I'm leaning a little bit more towards because he talks more, Reggie.
Reggie's French.
Reggie's not
French
good.
accent.
He's not French.
Well, you know, but he was putting on a French accent from the start of the year. But I know he's not doing it now, but
But
fine.
It's just they want him to keep talking, and it's terrible. Do the flips, you know.
Listen, I ain't gonna mince words here. I had Raw on this past Monday without headphones, and I couldn't understand a fucking word that's coming out of the mouth of Vince McMahon. He does not need to be speaking as a character anymore. He was literally like, "Baby, the chocolate pudding out of him." I was like, and look, I don't want to pick on the poor old guy too much because he is older, but it's like, I feel bad. I genuinely can't understand you. Please don't be on TV anymore. It ruins the legacy of your character and really your presence in the mind of fans. Like, he's really broken down in terms of his verbiage, and I can't say I want to hear him anymore.
And it's just a low rumble of a refrigerator kind of noise sometimes.
Have an egg. Look at the egg. You've got to give us a surprise. You've got to master the element surprise, because if you don't, it's not a surprise.
Who's your pick, Callum?
I actually had Shane McMahon on my list.
Oh, the
fucking rambling thing that he gave with Braun Strowman earlier in the year. Just
absolutely terrible.
Like, he's a guy that, and I hate saying things like this because I don't know whether it's true or not, but he just looks like a guy who's like, the beating that's been like put on his body throughout the last like 2 or 3 decades. Just like he can't comprehend stuff. It's like he just loses himself mid flow during a promo.
Now I feel bad that we're picking on the McMahons, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I feel really bad about the people that released 80 people from contracts earlier this year. I couldn't give a shit about like saying negative things about them. They're awful people. But we've got Dana Brooks, not great. Dominic Mysterio's bad at doing promos. You mentioned Tamina. Natalia's never been good. Casey Catanzaro and Caden Carter are really bad.
We're the life of the party. If you can't tell, we'll just tell you.
Zoe Stark's not great.
Yeah.
Rhea Ripley's incredibly robotic.
Yeah, what is that?
And wooden. But the worst is Eva Marie.
Yeah.
Because the only thing that they could have realistically brought her in for is her looks and character work. And she's so unbelievably wooden. Nothing she says sounds authentic at all. And yeah, she's just worst on all categories. It's like she's the anti-wrestler.
Paige was the anti-diva. She's the anti-wrestler.
Mm.
But she did say Eva Marie. That's worth a whole giant contract, right?
Golf clap.
Well, we're going to round out the Technical Skills Awards with the best and the worst match of the year. I had a couple options down. I had 5 that I had written out throughout the year that I was debating about between that I was... actually, no, I think I had more. Let me double check that. I might be missing this on this list a little bit weird. There is a page on smarkoutmoment.com that I had kept track of the matches of the year list. So it's 6. Okay, yeah, so I was missing one. One of them being just possibly the Royal Rumble matches, because Royal Rumbles are fun. But it's mostly between these options for me. And if it is your pick, again, of course, stop me and go along with it. Walter versus Tommaso Ciampa, NXT UK Championship match from NXT TakeOver Stand and Delivered Night 1. Fantastic match. That's kind of the whole point. Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair, WrestleMania for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Roman Reigns versus Edge versus Daniel Bryan, Universal title for WrestleMania Night 2. Ilya Dragunov versus Walter, NXT TakeOver 36.
Yeah, there it is, yeah.
That's your pick?
Yeah, I'm going to just say it out right now. There are some good matches WWE this year. I saw Walter versus Ilya Dragunov 2 and went, yeah, there's no point watching any other matches this year. Nothing's going to beat that. It was better than their first match, and their first match was my standout of last year. And yeah, just thought it was unbelievably awesome. It had the benefit of having a crowd going along with it as well. They had the babyface go over as well. It was a lot more even-footed, and the fact that it was just a perfect babyface performance by Dragunov, just being beaten repeatedly by this much bigger, much more powerful guy, but always coming back and never quitting. Just some of the spots during the match. I rewatched it in preparation for this, and it's just a masterpiece of a match. It's the last match that I want to remember the old NXT for.
Well, there was one other match that was on that same card that I had written down too. Was the 2 out of 3 falls match, Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly.
Really good match. It's not my pick, but I do want to say very good match. And one that isn't on your list that I will also shout out: Kaylee Ray and Meiko Satomura on the June 10th, 2021 NXT UK, where Meiko wins the belt. These two have incredible chemistry, and it's a shame nobody watches the show because it produces legitimately the most consistent program on all WWE television. But that is not my pick.
What'd you go with?
I went with Edge and Seth Rollins, Crown Jewel, Hell in a Cell. I love these two wrestlers, and a lot of times, especially in recent years, when you have dream matches, they don't deliver. These guys delivered in all 3 of their matches on SummerSlam, on the September 11th SmackDown at the Garden, and Crown Jewel was a great way to finish the feud, and it was my favorite match of the year because it was one of the only matches this year from WWE that made me feel like a kid again. And that was my match of the year.
Alrighty, worst matches of the year.
Did you actually pick one?
Oh, I think
Can't name 5, Tony. Maybe say a tie between 2, but 5's a bit much.
I'd have to rewatch them all to double check for sure if they were which one stands up for a second viewing. But the one I was leaning towards was Banks and Belair.
That's kind of it's kind of named the 3 top matches that I had this year, where Walter and Dragunov was far ahead, but the other 2 were Bianca and Sasha, and Edge and Rollins were the 3 standout matches this year.
You know,
Oh.
and I also want to shout out Brian and Roman on that SmackDown, that Brian's last match at WWE.
I don't know
Very
why
good.
I don't have the Rollins match on there. It might have been that happened during a time frame when I was too busy to write it down on the list. It might have been that. Because that's, wait, Hell in a Cell. When was that?
No, we watched that. We watched Crown Jewel together.
Maybe I don't know.
You probably
Maybe
just like that. It was very close to your wedding. So.
Yeah, it probably was just, yeah, that kind of thing. That's a thing for this year. Sorry, everybody. Just, priorities. Worst matches of the year. I had a couple down. Charlotte Flair versus Nia Jax from Monday Night Raw. That match was terrible. I really hated the idea of Becky Lynch beating Bianca Belair at SummerSlam the way that they did. Just the way that they booked that, I think, was just not a good decision. I had written down seemingly half of Fastlane, but two that stood out to me more than anything, and I kind of can't pick between the two, are the Tag Team Turmoil match and the Orton versus The Fiend match from night one of WrestleMania. Both of those were just awful. The Tag Team Turmoil match had a lot of botches in it. I don't think that the right team won, and the right team, even if you go with the idea that they won the titles, they didn't win it the next night anyway. So what was the point? And the Orton and Fiend thing, I mean, I had talked about that for months, that wasn't going to be good, and I was right.
I am going with Orton and Fiend because even without the stupid story going into it, even without the 9 months or whatever it was going into it, it's still Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt, arguably two of the biggest stars that you have in the whole company. How are they opening a second night of WrestleMania and ending the match in 5 minutes? Oh yeah, and Randy Orton doesn't get his comeuppance for burning a man alive. Fiend just loses. His powers get put towards Alexa, and he's fired. Terrible.
Yeah, there are a lot of choices. For worst, I had quite a few listed down. Most of them that Tony's already mentioned. Charlotte versus Nia Jax, obviously. Why the hell they were trying to do some sort of shoot fighting thing just didn't work at all.
Hey, can I guess yours? I think I know yours.
I've already mentioned the women's tag title match. I think is one of the worst matches in WrestleMania history.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like, and I think Randy Orton and the Fiend is definitely on that list as well. Let's not forget Damian Priest versus The Miz at WrestleMania Backlash with zombie lumberjacks.
Yeah, not good.
Just like an absolutely terrible match where John Morrison gets eaten by zombies on the outside, and The Miz tears up his ACL as well, and he's out for most of the year after it. But my worst is,
I think I know what it is.
Eva Marie versus Alexa Bliss from SummerSlam. Because you had both the mixture. I almost went with Alexa and Shayna because the whole fucking Lily stuff. But we'll definitely talk a lot more about Lily as we move on. But this had the combination of Alexa Bliss's character work, which has been the harbinger of doom in so many matches this year that she had, and Eva Marie, who can't wrestle, can't perform, can't act, can't sell, can't do anything. And just putting them together in this absolutely abysmal match, which killed the crowd at SummerSlam, which only came back to life when Becky Lynch came back, and then immediately killed when they actually saw the match between Becky and Bianca, which wasn't really a match anyway. But yeah, I think Eva Marie and Alexa was, I want to say by leaps and bounds, but it was the worst for me this year.
All right, everybody, that is the section of the Technical Skills Awards. Make sure you drop your comments below. Tell us what you thought were the best and the worst, whether you agree with our picks or you disagree with them or you think that we forgot about something. Just let us know. And if you are listening to this on the audio feeds like Spotify and Anchor and Amazon Music and iTunes and whatnot like that, then this is just going to continue and we're going to have everything just in one audio stream instead of separate streams. But if you are on YouTube, you're going to have to click on the next part because they are separate videos. And Writing Awards is coming up next after this. Make sure that you click on that, and we will see you there.